All right, folks, welcome on back for another fantastic edition of our live workshop here. Normally on Mondays, but here we are today, Tuesday, March 4th. Great to have all of our students and members alike inside our live trading room. Welcome on back here, folks, for another fantastic edition of our Traders Talk workshop. Should be good to go. Let me know, folks, if you could hear me inside our live trading room. Leda, Margaret, Luis, got the ladies at the trading room. Alongside them, we got Chuck. We got Chuck. A lot of Chuck from just before. Grantlin and Randy, Kathleen, at least all of our students joining us from before. Farzad, Alicia, Charlene, Brad. Great to see Brad with us again. Buongiorno, Andrea, our Italian friend up in Canada. Sam, Philip, Gary, Lawrence, Luis. Special shout out to her. We hope that you get better. And of course, we've been talking over email, just wishing you the best and hope to see you back to full health, back inside our, back inside our live trading room as you normally do. But great to have all of us back, though. Otherwise, all of us on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, the works. Still working out that kinks here in this computer, but good to go at least for this afternoon. At Cyber Trading U popping up there on the lower left. Now, give me a quick sec. I may even need to just do one thing with the little webcam settings here. Give me a quick sec if you can. Actually, I may need to even just log out, log back in on the YouTubes. One moment here, folks. If you're on social, if you're inside our live trading room, all right, let's get the screen back up and running here, folks. One moment. Here, and let's get the YouTube back up and running right now. Get my ugly mug out the way. There we go. All right, so we should be good now from this point forward. Now, with that said, what the hell has happened within the stock market of ours, right? Because the markets were breaking down just before, just the lower high now here. We'll try to break a higher high, but a head fake and coming back down, back below this range. Now it's just to tell you, things are not looking good. They have not been looking good from last week, from the end of the week before. All right, well, what does this mean for us inside our live trading room? Right? That's the first thing I want to get out the way, because I had so many different private chats from yesterday, from today, asking like what the next step is with the SPY, what the next step is with NVIDIA, what the next step is with Tesla as well. But one thing I want to be very firm about, if you're inside our live trading room, just because the market's dropping off does not mean at all that every single stock in the market is going to drop. Yes, your name brands are, your NVIDIA's, Teslas are. But where I'm talking about is, on the gainers list each and every day, when we're scanning from top to bottom on the gainers and the losers list too. But it is to say there could be a few trades that have news on their own that are making the stock pop on their own accord, going completely against the grain, right? Just remember what happened just yesterday. We had BTAI making a giant pop right out the gate here yesterday morning, that was at least. So I want to tell you, if there is a stock that is, on its own accord, with news of its own, it could be a pharma stock, it could be any sort of other stock out there. But just to say, if it's trending up going into the market open, if it's not dropping, I am going to have the confidence to think, all right, well, hey, what if it does show more buying interest once the market opens up after 9:30? So that's where I want to point out this trade on MASS, MASS from earlier today. This thing was a pain in the ass today. No pun intended. Mass ass. This thing was a giant pain in the ass today. There's a lot of trades that go completely against the grain as the market does drop, and they're really easy. And those are the days that I love the most here, because I can kind of puff my chest out, beat my chest proud here, and say, we make money going up too, especially in a down market at times. So that's where here for Mass, I was excited for this to try and break higher, for it to try and break, pre-market resistance, flip resistance into support. Long story short, it did that. It was a good move. I ended up taking a break even, a small loss, then I jumped in for the win. But still, the win wasn't like what I thought it could be, what it might turn out to be that we've seen other stocks do recent. So obviously now this thing's on the downside. We are done with this trade. We've thrown this thing to the wayside a little while ago at this point. But I want to go over this trade at least because it was on our watch list. A lot of our students were focused on it heading into the open. It has a good order book still. Had a good order book by the time the market opened up. So real quick, if you're here with us right now, Lawrence, Luis, Wiz, got Patrick, Margaret, got Sam here joining us. For a cheap stock, what price levels do we normally see big iceberg orders at? For a cheap stock, what prices do we normally see these big orders at? On the bid, on the ask, where do we see them? 50 cent levels and whole number levels, Lynn and Randy, Sam, Gillis, Margaret, all of it. Yeah, so right away, where I'm looking at this trade gap up, it popped obviously off some sort of news and it moved up in pre-market a little bit here. I'm just going to focus more around 50 cent levels and whole numbers. And with how much this had popped, I would even just focus more around the whole number levels at first here, even just not even as much 350, but we'll get to 350 in due time. $4 next, right? So this is where we're expecting to find the dumb money. The smart money, of course, you could say too, but more traders looking to trade off the 50 cent levels and the whole numbers. We're trying to trade off of them, but not at them. We're trying to sell under them. We're trying to buy over them. We're not trying to sell or buy necessarily at those prices specifically. So, that'll make a big difference here coming up at least. But, going into the open, the stock popped over 3. It held over 3 at first pretty much, and then moved up. Just notice, though, it had a tough time breaking over this 350 level. So, yes, lower highs. It is pulling back a little bit, but overall trend is still up. Overall trend is still higher lows. Of course, it might look to pull back here. It might look to break higher. So that's where you just have to react. Wait the first 3 to 5 minutes. Wait to see any trade play out, let alone this. Now, this is where I want to point out the imperfections of any trading out there. If I was doing this workshop and trying to show you the best trades ever from top to bottom and bottom to top, and it was so easy, so perfect all the time, I'd be disingenuous, right? I wouldn't be real. That's just where here there is imperfection with any strategy and ours too. So what happens here after the first 5 minutes? Well, it shakes around. I am waiting here. I am waiting these candles. But the more times it is nipping and testing this level, I am thinking it's going to give out. I am thinking that resistance is going to totally break and the stock is going to run. So I did jump in once it re-broke above resistance. It was just in the sequence here. And things were looking good to begin, right? Started off pretty good, pushed up maybe about like 15, 20 cents maybe as high as 30 cents actually, maybe just on that last top. But let me ask us here, Margaret, Gillis, Barbara, great to see. Jeff, great to see. Gary, a lot of us here may not have shouted out just before. But my next step with my catchphrases, my annoying catchphrases, right? You always hear them from class. I compare myself to like one of those wind up drawstring dolls. You pull the string from the back. You say the same 5 catchphrases over and over. When a stock breaks through a big level and I jump in, what am I expecting shortly after? Simply put, doesn't matter what direction, but simply put, what am I expecting shortly after? A big move, right? A big move. And certainly I'm looking for a big move up. So obviously needs to pop higher, needs to flip pre-market resistance or pre-market high here into support, needs to make the next push up to $4, see what happens there, right? Let me ask our students, what time's reversal time? What time do we expect reversals normally? What do we got? 10:30. So I'm just trying to add 1 and 1 together to make 2. That's all I'm doing here. So the fact that it started off great, all right, I'll take it, but I'm expecting more out of this stock, even with the market pulling back a bit. This stock is on its own planet, on its own orbit. It's up for a reason. And with that, there's a chance for this to make a gradual push higher. Simply put, it tried, it didn't, it came back down, and I got stopped out break even here. So I was in and out right at 352, came right back down and tanked. I felt good with it because, hey, it's not money lost. It's not money made either. But as far as reacting, at least to what happens when it goes the other way, I did pretty good. So every trade begins with the entry. If I can catch another runner coming up here, another stock potentially popping heading into 10 o'clock in the morning, then I'll take it. The issue was that there was nothing else. There was jack elsewhere. Maybe there was one stock here, FRGT. This thing was all over the map up until 950, and then that dropped. But I didn't jump into that. It was just more the mass trade for me. This had a good order book, but it was under my level. So I was just on the sidelines. I could have shorted. There were other inverse tickers that moved up actually as like the equities dropped, like Tesla single stock ETF here. This actually moved up pretty well, whereas Tesla tanked. SMST. This is a MicroStrategy inverse ETF. So it had a bounce to begin. Listen, I could have jumped into those, I just felt I just felt like where I was, leading the room this morning, just I didn't want to focus on those. And then next thing I know, like one of those pre-market movers starts taking off like no other. And I could have, should have had the time to hone in on them still. So there is a line of stubbornness, right? As far as, I think there's a chance for this to pop, as long as it shows higher lows, maybe it can come back to that resistance. Am I wasting time waiting? Yeah. Is cash a bad position to be in? No. Sounds pretty logical to me, right? I don't think anyone would disagree with that logic. So that's just where I'll tell you. I don't mind being a little patient at least. Now, here, though, again, just to shed the imperfection here, this was not as good of an entry. And I realize that now after the fact. This was a great entry, just didn't make the move I wanted. I jumped back in on this trade here when I probably shouldn't have. Just I needed to give it more time because it was just coming right back up to resistance where it broke back below it as support. So the first time it comes back up to it, it really should hold, right? So I waited this first candle at least, but on the next one I jumped in and it was within like 10, 15 seconds. Like I know it's a loser. So it stopped me out right at 340, pulled back at 340 and took me out. Um, looking back, that was not as clean of an entry. Broke below support. Support should look to initially become resistance. So I probably should have given it another candle. Now, though, from here, the more times it is coming back up, that's where I am thinking. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on you again. Maybe fool me three times, shame on me finally, right? So I know eventually if this thing's actually going to try and fight one more time, it should give out. Now, the next step would be to see this pre-market resistance flip into support. So I jumped back in on this trade over 350. It could have even been over 355, maybe. That's where it looked like there could have been a chart level. I was focused around 350 instead. So I did jump in once it rebroke 350 here. Now, though, it ended up popping pretty good to begin. I took half my trade out at 387 it was as it pushed up higher. But that's where I was thinking. The next step would be to see this pre-market high flip now into support. If that happens, there's a good chance for this to try and hit 4. If this doesn't happen, well, you see the end story. So I actually got stopped out break even on the second half of my trade, believe it or not. Maybe I could have raised my stop up higher, but I felt good with at least taking half out around that 4 level, a little under that 4 level. For as much time as I was waiting here, it's a profit. It wiped out my loss. I'm in the plus now. So maybe I could have made more money shorting today, right? But as far as seeing a stock pop on its own accord, seeing a stock trend with higher lows, I wanted to give this more of a chance and see if it could look to make that higher high. It tried to just before, but obviously, if it's not going to make a lower high, then the end result is what you see here, just crashed right back down. So, all right. So, I wanted to at least share my experience with you this morning on the mass trade. A lot of us were with Fausto in our phase 3 stock course class. Actually, I'm tagging him out there this afternoon. I'll be in there with all of our students this afternoon. So hopefully we have a more active close, at least a better up market to work with. But with that in mind, though, we had the mass trade. I want to jump to BTAI from yesterday. This thing is obviously down now, but this was a good push, yesterday morning too. And then from there, I want to get to all the market bullshit. I mean that. No, seriously, I mean that. That's part of my agenda today. Mass, BTAI, and market bullshit. We're talking about the SPY. We're talking about NVIDIA, Tesla. And we got some Bitcoin. But obviously, with everything happening within the market, with the tariffs, the budget cuts prior to that, the Zelensky thing, there's a bunch of stuff happening within the stock market as to why we're seeing such a big drop. And we're going to talk about the SPY and the major stocks coming up next. But this is a good example here to show that not everything is dropping with the market. And here in this trade, on this trade with BTAI, this ended up reversing right around that 10:30-ish, right? Right around 10:30, 11 o'clock or so, give or take a little bit. And it ended up flattening out and then pulled back, right? So long story short, this actually played out really well to our expectations in terms of time. But right away, though, we had no interest in the stock. It was just dead in pre-market. There was no news actually out on this one. There was no trend on this in pre-market. It was just pretty much right at 925. Maybe news came out then, but it started to pop at this point. So we had called this out once it got halted. It wasn't on our main list. Market opened up, ding, ding, ding. It popped instantly and got halted. So that's where we say, what happens when it reopens up? Well, we talk about this more in our phase 2 stock course. phase 2 classes, perhaps phase 3 if we catch a good halt pretty much right away once it reopened up, made a slingshot, opened up at 320, pulled back under that price, then shot right back above. Did it get halted again? It did. Right at 942, it got halted even a second time. So this made it pretty difficult to trade at first, where it just kept reopening up after each halt and kept getting halted again and again and again. Makes it very difficult to just jump headfirst into. This is where I want to point out to you that in terms of time and the cyber clock, even with the markets kind of pulling back this stage in the morning yesterday, we ended up seeing this continue to build. It dipped back down eventually. It pulled back under and over, not just 450, but that's actually where this had reopened up pretty much on the second halt. It reopened up right at 450. That's a huge talking point for us in class. And from there, it dipped under it, but built support again, under and over, and it made that next leg up. So this provided multiple chances for you to try and jump in. First off, support, then we'll talk about resistance coming up at least here. On the stick all morning, need that H2O. So with that there, $6 is our next resistance, figuring as just top here and then also as a whole number. So the more it keeps pecking and stabbing that level, I would think that there's a good case to try and see a better push right here. But this is where we're running into reversal time. So this makes it more 50-50 here for me. It is testing a resistance a few times, which I like, but this is where, again, it needs to play nice now. If there's going to be continuation, if this is going to run more after 10:30, 10:45 in the morning, then it needs to play nice. I don't want to have this chop around. So right away, you could tell it didn't flip this into support, pulled immediately back under, obviously, as we knew ahead of time here at this review. Reversal time held pretty well around 10:30, 10:45, and it just got messy after. So maybe there could have been one more attempt where you thought, okay, it's going to pop again. It keeps stabbing this level. This green candle, let's just use, could be a decent entry, but if it's not going to at least play nice, then there was plenty of time here for you to realize what was going to happen next. So, we always say it, if it's not going to make a big move in your direction, it's going to make a big move against you, opposite of what you're looking for. So, as a new student here, the biggest thing that we harp on is just making sure that your stop is set, making sure that you're following like what Fausto calls the 30-second rule. I'm pretty wordy with how I phrase it in class. I talk a lot. So, I use a couple of different comparisons with it, putting your seatbelt on. But there is plenty of time here to realize if it's not going to make that big move up, it's going to make a big move down. That's pretty much it. I mean, I think news came out in the afternoon about a common stock or direct stock offering where it just tanked the stock price, and that was it. I mean, it was it beforehand, but when that news comes out, the stock price just dilutes. So that's game over. All right, so that's pretty much it on the mass trade from this morning. The BTAI from yesterday, at least, that's garbage now. Leda, expecting a big move. There we go on YouTube right now, just helping out there. Appreciate you as always. Now, really quick, just a couple things. If you're new to our social media streams or platforms alike, just hit the follow or subscribe button down below. At Cyber Trading U is our handle. I'm doing this on restream, but otherwise at Cyber Trading U on YouTube, namely. That's where we stream live each and every morning. We do a live workshop here normally every Monday. Ran into a computer issue yesterday, and we are good to go now. With that said, for Alicia, for Margaret, Barbara, Gillis, Brad, our students inside the live trading room, if you have questions about these two trades, let me know. Like any follow-ups on mass, any follow-ups on the the BTAI. But otherwise, let's just talk about the market coming up now. All right, so you have an opinion, I have an opinion. We don't care about the opinions. We care about the levels, right? And where I talk about that, I refer more about politics. So obviously, there's a lot of politics that are influencing this market drop-off. We'll talk about that in the general discussion tab if you really want to. But here in Traders Talk, we care about levels. And if you followed us from last week or the week before it was, like 2 weeks ago, I was saying that essentially the SPY needed to flip this top 608, 609 area. It was holding pretty well heading back into the end of last year. So, for as much as it held and then dropped off, well, it moved back up, right, from January into Feb. You need to see this flip into support. The same rules apply on like a day trade, that we do inside our room as they do with the long term. Just it's going to take a longer period of time for it to play out, meaning just days and weeks, candles here otherwise. So it ended up breaking back over this area back from mid-Feb, about 3 weeks ago, and things were good at that time, right? It's holding over support, closed at the highs on this candle. This candle started down but popped higher here. We were doing good, right? Now, obviously, news comes out about budget cuts, news comes out about tariffs, what happened with Trump, Zelensky, Vance. Again, we're not talking about that. We don't really care about opinions here. We care about what happened on this chart. And what happened on this chart is simply that once this broke back under this, and it's a larger red candle. I mean, this is something that I've been talking about from the last year with these smaller corrections, smaller keyword. But once we pulled back under this line and certainly closed a lot lower from it, that's where you say it's going to take a lot more time for support to build again, because we didn't really have much support in this area. Like just kind of a lot of chop, a lot of just BS, really. Like just some wicks down that popped up, but nothing consistent. If anything, the only real support that we had was back after the election once Trump won, and that's where we had the past resistance flip. So what happened here, flipping that into support, is really what we needed to see happen here next, right? And if that doesn't happen, then obviously we could fall down a lot. At the minimum, it's going to take just a period of time. And that's what I was saying. Just at the minimum, it's going to take a period of time for a true support to really build. And I wouldn't have minded prior to the last 5 candles here. If the market did bounce back up, and if we did come back up to 608, 609, and if we were to flip that into support, I would feel as confident about continuation off that level as I would have been even here. But otherwise, clearly from last week into this week, we've only been dropping lower. So, that's where just as far as seeing support look to take time to build out, we still need to see that. And especially with the market dropping even more recently. Looks like we're having a good recovery right now today. Small bounce today, like from the last hour and a half. So there's still time today to close out green at least. But that's where after it broke below 585, broke below that from yesterday, from the end of last week, from Thursday. But that's just where's the next real support? I don't really see much around here that looks great. Just a bunch of candles just at different prices. That's where I say it's going to take a few days for that to solidify if it wants to. This was a pretty good bottom here that built, and then it popped back up here. This was back from late October. Between that, and then I would even say this as well, back from late September into late October, that area could very well become support again coming up. I was going over that on a coaching call with a student earlier today. So obviously there's still time for this to build higher. But if we keep seeing lower highs, chopping down lower week by week, I wouldn't be shocked if we drop back down towards like 565, 570. That was holding pretty well back from September, October time. Now, though, here's a cool talking point, though, because it's not just about horizontal price levels. It's also about seeing the trends, right? So the major trend on the SPY and SPX altogether is pretty much up, right? Just like you could just do basic trend off lows. But otherwise, though, this is more recent. Look back from after the election. Do that there. 1, 2, 3. And that awfully lines up pretty well, at least coming into the next few days, the next maybe week, perhaps. If it were to pull back down here, it would not only test the 565, 568-ish horizontal support that we built, but it would be testing this again as trendline support. So I would find this to be a critical area here to see the market hold. I'm bullish on the market long-term still. I want everyone to still understand that. Obviously, we're not looking good here of recent, and I wanted to see resistance flip into support at 608. I knew if we weren't going to, that there was a good chance for more of a pullback or to see support take longer to build, whatever the case may be. But I'll tell you, though, this would be a decent spot to try and look for support to bounce and make a stronger move back up. So that's not just for the SPY, but that would be for across the board. That would be for NVIDIA, Tesla, etc. Of course, these stocks have their own charts, but just looking at NVIDIA at least, we built support back from, well, you could say more here. It's kind of like this area. Back from late September of last year. we came into it back from the beginning of February and we stabbed under it pretty hard yesterday. At least today, with a strong move back over it. If we close back over it, that's at least a potential good sign. But take it day by day. This is on a strong trend down off these recent highs. So it's still going to take a little while to see support truly consolidate, build, formulate, and get that better return back up. That's at least my opinion. So that's where, at least here for now, 114 and change, maybe 115-ish or so. The more that builds out in the coming days, perhaps there could be a better bounce ahead. We could definitely look into Bookmap, though. Of course, that's like even a larger talking point when it comes to day-by-day action. But that's where, how about this? This is a great talking point here. Take a look at this right off of 110. So I was pointing that out earlier inside our live trading room, just on the audio broadcast. I was going over that saying we had 1 million shares on the bid, 1.01 shares or million shares on the bid. That's right at 110. So long story short, it held over that. It built back over the VWAP today. Now it's popping back up. That's good. But this is crazy. Take a look at this. I have never seen as many orders at one price for NVIDIA ever. Let me just see. Nope, not that one. Give me a moment here. Give me a sec. Just going to take a quick screenshot here if I can. One moment. This was insane, though. There was about 15 or 16,000 shares out there. I'm sorry, 15 or 16,000 buy orders out there. Check this. 15,943 orders out there. I mean, that's separate people. I mean, that's like a rock concert. That's like filling out like SoFi Stadium or something, That's insane. 15, 16,000 people out there on the bid. So it's not just the size of the order that makes it up. And that's only through NASDAQ, by the way. So, that made up about 642,000 shares of it all. There was about 1.1 million shares out there, at least throughout the day. So there could be even like double the amount here overall. Who knows? But when you see that many orders out there making up one price, you figure that somebody knows something. I've never seen that many orders, that many people make up one singular price. So it goes to show why NVIDIA made such a good bounce, at least earlier this morning. Quick question, really quick. Again, not to sound like a broken record player. I asked it earlier. You actually most recently answered it for me. What time is reversal time? What time is reversal time there, folks? What time do we more often than not expect reversals? What time do we normally see bounces? We focus on what happens more often than not. That's where for the mass trade, not a surprise that it failed to hold higher lows and continue. It ended up pulling back. Again, just pointing that out. Obviously, the markets are down, but this was on its own, move here separately. So, there is caution with this reversing. There is the thought of it doing so, and that's what happened. Same with NVIDIA, though, just off that 1.1 million share buy order out there. Didn't even break it, didn't test it, just kind of hovered above it and gradually moved back on up, right? So, that's NVIDIA. Now, Tesla, we can just do Tesla pretty quick as well. Those are the two most popular stocks. Now, Tesla, this ended up filling a gap. Filled a good chunk of it, at least. And it still might look to fill more of it over time. So Tesla, there's a bunch of gaps where it does fill, but there's some of them where it doesn't. This one, down, it technically never filled it. It just kind of gapped back over here. So even two gaps, it really didn't fill. This one just now, it finally is coming into filling here. It might drop lower. There's a chance for it to fully fill and go lower, perhaps. But obviously, assuming that's not the case, then it's done already a good chunk of it at this point. Bounced off of 260 today. This doesn't have a great long-term graph, that's for sure. It needs to take some time to build support. I would focus on this trend line here off the highs. That's clean. That's really clean. So for as well as this built out for years, and it broke over this as resistance, again, not to sound like a broken record player, what should resistance flip into when this gets tested? for as much as this broke out as resistance and ran, like doubled up in price, really, that should initially look to become support, right? I'd like to think initially it should. Well, hey, when it was at 400 bucks, I bet you thought it wasn't going to come back that low. Well, guess what? It's here now. So that's where, at least over time, like 250-ish, that trend line area to see it get tested as support, that's a reality. That plays pretty nicely into the SPY and looking at that trend off of the lows, a little different in the respective trend down. Tesla's is off the highs from the last couple of years. But as far as seeing resistance flip into support, I would want to see that happen on Tesla. Now, for the SPY, that's where this is more critical because this has already been tested and poked at as support a couple times already. So the more that it does do that, then it's going to totally break. That's where there's more risk overall to the markets here, I feel. And of course, if the markets break, Tesla's going to not hold that support level. It's going to break below it and tank too, right? It's not going to swim upstream. But there is a lot more significance behind this than a lot of people really come to realize. So. All right, so we talked about NVIDIA. We talked about a little Tesla. Talked about the SPY. Do a little Bitcoin right now, a little Bitcoin. So this is where, if anything, for me, Bitcoin is a long game as far as like length of time. And I've said that from like the last year, year and a half. Do I like the volatility? Some of the times, yes. Some of the times, no. 2 days ago, when Trump announced a strategic Bitcoin reserve, or he like tweeted about it, posted about it, market or Bitcoin popped like 10,000 points in one candle. That's insane. And I thought right then and there that it would at least begin to solidify support from that 91,000 again. Let me show you the chart here coming up. So I got these lines here too. How about that? All right, give me a quick sec here. I'm gonna show what that meant, at least in just a moment. But basically with Bitcoin, when it ended up coming up off this candle back from, what was it, back from Sunday night into Monday, with Trump announcing essentially a strategic Bitcoin reserve, it's going to be with a few different cryptos involved. When you see this sharp of a candle up and it closed at the highs, you figure, all right, it can pull back and build support again. But we had good support building already off 91,000. So I truly thought that 91 would continue to hold at this stage. And I have it totally flush back down again just yesterday, same day pretty much. It's pretty discouraging. I can't lie to you. I mean, a lot of traders online aren't really feeling too happy about that type of drop. So that's where we have to say, if we don't get back up towards 90,000 by like the end of this week, I would say, or maybe by the beginning of next, like I would be pretty careful as far as thinking we might even look to go lower. And I didn't think that that would be the case initially here, but at least at this point, if this flips into resistance and if it drags back down, if it has a strong rejection off this price in the coming days or in the coming week ahead, then there is a case to see it drop lower, right? Now, one thing I like with this is that we have a lot of good down wicks, so that emphasizes the thought of support building. That happened back even before that tweet came out. I mean, back from like last week here, where it dropped as low as 78,000. These down wicks are very encouraging for an up move over time. And if you don't understand that, then just look what happened back here. Revved up again. So it was a good move at the time. Of course, it failed to break higher. One more swipe down, but these down wicks are very important as far as seeing growth to the upside afterwards. That's where this was looking pretty good for a long time. Now, normally I'd say the more that this support level keeps getting poked at, it could break. And I was thinking that here back from mid-Jan, like the more it's getting tested, I'm not getting too happy about that. The fact that we're seeing these down wicks and afterwards it slings back up, it goes to show how damn strong this level really was. So could new support be building here? Yeah, it's possible. Look at these down wicks. I like them to begin. But it was just for me that once it broke below 91,000 here, I was trying to come up with support around 85, 86, kind of around these down wicks here, at least prior to that run up. So kind of around 85, 86. I like 91 a lot more. 91's a lot stronger of a structure. Now, here's where I'm going to talk about some interesting trading strategy with ranges. Give me a quick second here because I need to do something here pretty quick. Okay. So where we talk about ranges, we see tops and bottoms being built, top, bottom. Then in between that is a midway point, the 50% line, basically. You could say like a fit, level. But just otherwise, though, what I did was I ended up doing 1.5 levels here as well, 1.5, 2. So what happens is over time, this needs to build a support. This was pretty close to that 91,000 actually. So it's not going to be flawless. But around this area, well, that was support for a little while. Well, it broke below it. Now at this stage, according to this like stronger range here, kind of using 50%, 100%, 150, etc. There's a possibility where it does pull back down towards the previous, cycle high that we had back in 2021, right around 68,000. There's a thought to it. There's a thought to it. I'm not saying it's definitely gonna. I'm not bearish. I'm long term bullish. Everyone knows that. But now at this stage, I'm just thinking like, shit. If we can't get back close to that 91,000 very soon, there is a stronger thought where Bitcoin continues to drop off more. So I'm not going to keep buying at this stage. I'm going to hang on to what I got, but I'm going to hold off on my buys until we see better structure building again over that 91,000 area. Until then, I'm probably going to wait because there's a good chance that if it doesn't do that here, like by the end of this week, if it doesn't come back up close to 91 to try it, just lingers here, that's the worst case scenario. I wouldn't want that to happen at all because we've already done enough around these prices back from October, November. We need to get back up and above. Otherwise, I think there's a chance where we do drop a little bit more. So, for as long term bullish as I am, you just got to read the charts and say, all right, if it's not going to break higher, there's a case for it to break lower. Then from that point, if we continue to see this flip into resistance, what's the next step from there? So that's basically how I'm going to be interpreting Bitcoin going forward. Long term bullish. If there's any sort of good news that comes out, I know that March 7th, I think on Friday, they're coming out with some crypto summit at the White House. I don't know what they're going to announce, if there is any official number that they're going to say, we're going to buy X number of Bitcoin here. I don't know. If there is any great news that comes out with that, then of course we're going to see Bitcoin push back up and we might get that flip again from 91,000 back into support. So I'll be watching out for that specifically. March 7th, we have that coming out. From Lynn and Randy, learned something interesting in class today. Played SBIT when Bitcoin was short, IBIT when long. Yep, exactly. So IBIT is BlackRock ETF, just for long, and then SBIT. We actually had this on our watch list the other day. I think it was one of the ones we had on our watch list. I think the other day. But as far as seeing push upward when Bitcoin drops, this would be a good one to look at. It at least has a good spread. Trading 6 million shares today, but obviously down now. Bitcoin going back up. So, all right, folks. Hey, we are going to finish up in just a little bit here. We're going to head back to Mass, I guess, see where that's at right now. But if there's any other trades you'd want me to look at here, let me know. We do this workshop normally every Monday afternoon, 12 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Pacific. Sorry, Mountain Time. But otherwise, at least if you have any questions, let me know. Good bounce on my Celsius swing trade. I'm down on right now, too. I'm up on Neo again. Got out on TKO with a profit from this morning. Took a few bucks out of that, but I could have managed that trade a lot better on the way down. SMCI from Alicia. Yeah, we'll take a look. So SMCI is moving back up 9% today. So that's good to see as far as like day trade goes. It was down a lot yesterday. It was steady down. So no surprise that it did shake back down pretty quickly here. Initially popped at the open, but it pulled back pretty hard. So that's where you say, all right, there's a chance for this trend to continue. Let's see if it could break a lower low. Obviously, it did not break a lower low. It held higher low from here, built support really well, and then pushed back up. So you're thinking, all right, well, what happens if we keep seeing resistance getting tested and poked at? Give me a sec here. I'll load up SMCI, see where we have those orders. One moment here. I guess in the meantime, good segue while I'm at it, right? Because we have a couple of big things to announce here coming up. Actually, coming up just tomorrow. If you go right to our website, we actually have our Cyber Expo event lined up tomorrow into Thursday. Huge multi-speaker event. Have some of the best educators and traders within the whole industry at least joining us here. Of course, we have Fausto leading the show, of course, but we got Silas Peters, Melissa Armo, Wiz Buckley, of course. He's a huge name. Jeff Gibby, good friend of ours, Rick Sadler, Larry Gaines, Vince Vora, Marina Villatoro, the trader chick, AJ Brown, not the football player, Jerry Allison as well, at least, but a long slate of presenters and educators throughout the industry joining us tomorrow. Just make sure that you register for that event at least. Go right to the C2 homepage, click register right here, and you'll be good to go from that point. Now, let's talk about SMCI next. We talked about this just before. Alicia was asking about it. Where do we have our resistance here? Well, let me ask. Alicia, Lynn and Randy, Dave, Patrick, Sam, Gillis, all of our students, where do you see the largest order on the ask? Where do you see the largest number on the ask side? Darkest orange, boldest orange, what do we got? Showing it this way for a certain reason. I'm trying to throw a couple of us off, but where do we see the boldest orange line, the largest number under the COB column there? That's a resistance at least. In the meantime, might I say as well, if you are a new student of CTU, we strongly encourage you to get your one-on-one coaching sessions scheduled. If you are a new student of CTU, or if you've not gotten them scheduled just yet, we certainly look for you to get them scheduled over time. I'll reach out to you at least this week, likely. What do we got? 38 right here, right? 50,000 shares on the ask. There's 27,000 shares for reference at 38.50. So what's the larger, right? So I'm more focused on $38. Now with that though, you do have resistance just from the chart. I mean, I guess, right? Because it kind of spiked up here early, came back down. That doesn't necessarily create resistance here, but the more it is chopping around a certain price level, or not chopping rather, if it's holding a price level rather nicely, you could possibly be better off even here, 37.60 as far as the chart level goes. This candle, little false break right back down. So that actually could have been the beginning. Now, as far as where your real resistance was, as far as level 3, level 4 goes, it's 38 bucks. So it ended up popping over it actually rather fast, where, the first time it tests resistance, I would be expecting for that resistance to hold. And the more it keeps getting poked at, I'd feel stronger about a move up. So this is where probably just on the sequence here as it's shaking around, the more I see it pressing over without it rejecting, we're human beings. We can't time it perfectly, right? So I'm being very generic when I say the more it's testing that level in that smaller time span, there's not a number of bars I wait for. It's just kind of based on feel. So there are times where I miss it. I'm a human being, much like you are. You never know who my audience is, right? And you got AI nowadays, you never know who's listening to this workshop. Now, it's just to say at least, ended up popping, ended up running. Now, either way, what happens when a stock breaks over resistance and it runs from it? Lynn and Randy, Alicia, Sam, Margaret, Gillis, all of us here. What do you got for me? When a stock breaks over resistance and runs, resistance becomes support, right? All of us answering. Gillis, Alicia, Margaret, Kerry there too. Perfect. All right. So that's where, at least here, is that a surprise? Not really. Based off what we teach every day in our room, in our classes, what we just think about from trade to trade. The first time it comes down here, I am thinking support could hold. Now, if it doesn't bounce like it did here, if it just kind of chops back down again, if it's underperforming after 5-10 minutes, that's where you got to say, watch out. There's a chance for that to break then, right? But this made the exact move that you'd want it to make, the exact move that we teach for you to believe in. So, it broke under and over, made a big move shortly after, right? That's all. All right, folks. I think that's pretty much it. Let me just get to the chat, scrolling up and down and around here. Quantum and nukes trending up, possibly. For a Monday or for a Tuesday afternoon, even though it's Tuesday, it's still 12:50 in the afternoon. I'm not really interested in trading right now. We're going to wait till later in the day. So 2:30 in the afternoon, we'll probably be more aggressive with taking trades, building up our watch list. We have class later today too. I'll be in there trading there for you. So you'll get to see myself at least, my execution system, just showing my level 2 there as well, and just showing you how I set my stops, get into a trade at least. So I'm looking forward to that, but that'll be a better time to try and focus more around like the market. Right now the SPY is moving up a little bit. Actually, not even drooping back down a little bit right now. But otherwise, though, Nvidia is still holding up nice. Maybe that could flip 114 and change into support. Tesla possibly, if that could build better over time, there could be a reversal. I got no itch to trade right now, though, at this point. So unless if it's some small cap stock popping on its own orbit, just with much better momentum than we would be expecting at that point, I'm going to sit on my hands here for right now and just wait till later today. But that's where we say, hey, for all of our gold, platinum, and diamond C2 students, we encourage you to join us later today. Just be inside our live trading room. You get the link for that coming up later on today, at least. So we're going to jump off the mic for right now. We'll be back at 2:30 p.m. just for the afternoon meeting. Just going right from there, building up our watch list heading into the market close. Now, hey, if you're on social media right now, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, the works, we appreciate you joining us. There we go. It blocks my ugly mug there, at least. At Cyber Trading U, just popping up down below in blue, that banner below in blue. Just be a friend, tell a friend. Look to follow or subscribe right to our YouTube channel right there. Go live each and every morning, at least at 9 o'clock Eastern time. 35+ year pro, Fausto Pugliese, scanning the market at least then. I do this every Monday normally. I had a computer issue at least yesterday. So here we are today. So next Monday, same time, same place, but different weekday. We'll be right back at it. But folks, hey, just join us inside our live trading room. You can scan that QR code on the top right, get access to free workshop coming up. Then otherwise, you can go right down to the bottom below, scrolling blue banner below right there. It'll show ctu.co/trial. That's the main web link that will take you to our landing page to join us inside our live trading room, at least for a week-long membership. We look forward to having you there, but we'll be back live later on this afternoon for all of us here live.